Hello, I'm meteorologist Brad Winter from Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. Currently, we are seeing rain and a few thunderstorms across the eastern Dakotas and into Minnesota. This activity is expected to continue through the overnight hours. Now, despite the rain, we saw some areas on Thursday in southeast South Dakota and southern Minnesota reach around 90 degrees still. However, those temperatures will be cooler as we head into the weekend. And you'll notice a lot of these blue and green boxes from the flood warnings as the spring snowmelt has started. And we're going to be watching out and keeping an eye on the flooding throughout the next couple of weeks. And so that rain and those few scattered thunderstorms will continue, as I said, through the overnight hours and into the early parts of Friday morning. Really doesn't move east or west a whole lot, pretty much staying kind of within that southwest South Dakota to the northwest Minnesota area as we get into Friday morning. And throughout the day on Friday, it just slowly slides to the east, that rain and that few scattered thunderstorms. Now, do notice this model does paint some snow down in southwest parts of South Dakota. Really not too worried about that. Some of the other models, a lot of the other models are still indicating just some rain down there. So not really expecting much down there. I think most of that's going to be rain. This is just kind of the latest American model that has come out this evening that I'm showing you at this point. Otherwise, as we slip into Friday night and early Saturday morning, again, you can see that rain continues to slide just a little bit east now. Most of it's kind of into Minnesota as we get into early Saturday morning, and that rain continues to move to the northeast across the day or during the day on Saturday. It's more so when we get into late Saturday night and into early Sunday morning has been the question mark regarding this batch of snow here. And so it's really when this storm gets a little more wrapped up and starts to really pull down some of that colder air into the Saturday night and early Sunday morning time frame when we have that possibility of snow. And so as we get into the early parts of Sunday morning, you can see that snow down in the southeast, southern parts of Minnesota. It does paint some freezing rain and some sleet. I really don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be more that rain-snow mix. And so it's just a matter of, will the precipitation come down heavy enough that it will turn over to all snow and perhaps even accumulate a little bit? This is the painting right now. This is about 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So ultimately, that's the question. Will it come down heavy enough to transition over to all snow? Now, ultimately, here's the caveat in all this. Even if it does kind of mix in with a little more snow than rain, a lot of these areas down and through here, as we just saw, we're seeing 80s, 90 degrees. So those temperatures down there, those road temperatures, surface temperatures, have actually warmed up a fair amount. So even if it does snow down there, really not expecting much in the way of accumulation. Those surface temperatures are going to be just too warm for anything to really stick. Now, perhaps later, as we get later into Sunday and maybe into Sunday night, perhaps some of these areas up into northeastern parts of Minnesota where the ground's a little cooler, maybe they'll get a little bit more stickiness. Some of that snow will stick around just a little bit, but even up there, you can see most of that snow ultimately falls. The heavier snow wants to fall a little bit further to the south, where we have had those warmer temperatures. To the north, where it's been maybe just a little bit cooler, the snow doesn't really stick around much. So with all that said, I guess I'm not too worried. We might see some snow, but really not expecting much in the way of accumulation. And really, even if you take a look at the model and where it says it could potentially stick to the ground, I mean, it still really isn't predicting much. In fact, where it does say it's going to be the most is right around the Twin Cities areas, and most likely that's not going to be the case. It's just going to be too warm across the Twin Cities, across the metro. So there you can see we're really not expecting much to accumulate. You might get an isolated area of an inch, perhaps 2 at the most early in the morning, Sunday morning. But then as you get later in the morning and the afternoon, that will quickly melt away. And so beyond that, after Sunday, after we get rid of this low pressure system here, we do have just a little bit of a ridge that slides into the area and brings in just a little bit warmer air as we get into kind of the early to mid part of the week. But then towards the back end of the week, next week, that jet does kind of flatten out a little bit, gets a little bit further south and becomes just a little bit more active. Now, we're not talking these big storms, but we're looking at least maybe cooler weather, wetter weather as we get into the back half of next week, the way it's starting to look right now. And just taking a look at the European model as we get into Tuesday night and Wednesday, you can see a few showers, some thunderstorms across the region. And then again, as we get into Friday, possibly maybe Saturday, another little system ejects out of the south And exactly how far north that makes it is kind of uncertain at this point. That's pretty far out there, but you can see how kind of active it is throughout next week. We got a couple of shots of some rain, possibly a little bit of mix of snow through the overnight hours as we go through the week. And so if you're planning to be out and about this weekend, some of you might want to bring an umbrella, maybe even a little bit warmer clothes than what you were anticipating, especially considering you've had some 80s and 90s for some of you the last few days. It's going to be a little cooler and just a little bit more wet as we go through the weekend. All right, everybody. So that is the weather forecast. I appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, I'm Brad Warner for Region Weather Live. And everybody, have a good day.